The first signs of the Galactic Empire's arrival were subtle, almost easy to ignore at first. Scientists noticed unusual gravitational readings near the edge of the solar system, strange movements of distant asteroids, and mysterious energy signatures that no natural phenomenon could explain. At first, governments debated whether it was just another comet or a scientific anomaly. But soon, satellites captured images that left everyone in shock. Massive ships, larger than any human imagination could conceive, were approaching the inner planets. They were sleek, dark, and ominous, moving with precision and speed that made human technology look like toys in comparison. In major cities across the globe, people watched the news in disbelief. New York, Tokyo, London, Delhi, Rio de Janeiro, everywhere, screens flashed images of the alien armada as military analysts tried to explain what humanity was witnessing. The ships were not just large. They were threatening, hundreds of them moving in formation as if choreographed by some invisible hand. Panic started spreading not just among civilians but also among world leaders. Heads of state, scientists, and military commanders convened emergency meetings, trying to make sense of the threat. The question on everyone's mind was simple and terrifying. Why were they here? The Galactic Empire did not communicate immediately. There was no warning, no demand for surrender, no diplomatic message. It was as if the Empire wanted humanity to experience fear first, to understand the futility of resistance before speaking. This silence unnerved everyone. Analysts tried to guess their intentions, creating countless scenarios ranging from peaceful exploration to total destruction. Every theory seemed less likely than the terrifying alternative, that Earth, a small blue planet in a distant corner of the galaxy, was being considered a target. For the ordinary people, life changed almost overnight. Air traffic was restricted, space agencies canceled all missions, and emergency drills were organized in cities around the world. Families gathered, trying to stay calm while watching the news. Children asked questions their parents could not answer. "Are we going to be okay?" was the most common, haunting question. Governments advised calm, but even leaders struggled to hide their fear. Humanity had never faced anything like this before. The planet had experienced wars, natural disasters, and pandemics, but nothing on this scale. This was a threat from beyond the stars, and no one knew if humanity could survive it. Meanwhile, in the skies above, the Empire's ships moved like silent predators. Satellites sent back images of the Armada, revealing hundreds of vessels, each bristling with unknown weapons. Some were enormous, capable of carrying entire armies, while others were small and fast, scouting the solar system. Scientists studied the ships with every tool they had, trying to find weaknesses, trying to understand their technology. But everything about them was advanced, almost impossibly so. It seemed clear that any confrontation would be disastrous for humans if they relied on conventional tactics. As the initial shock faded, world leaders began to coordinate a response. The United Nations called an emergency session, bringing together the most brilliant minds from every country. Military strategists, scientists, diplomats, and engineers worked tirelessly, but disagreements were constant. Some advocated immediate surrender, fearing the Empire's overwhelming power. Others pushed for resistance, insisting humanity could not allow itself to be conquered without a fight. Arguments grew heated. The tension was unlike any political debate in human history, because this time, failure could mean the end of civilization. On Earth, people began preparing in their own ways. Governments initiated emergency protocols, reinforcing cities and organizing evacuation plans in coastal areas. Secret projects, long hidden from public view, were activated. Experimental weapons, stealth aircraft, and early spacefaring military programs were all put on alert. Scientists worked around the clock to study the alien vessels, using whatever data they could gather to devise possible defense mechanisms. The world was waking up to the reality that humanity was no longer alone, and for the first time, humans felt small, fragile, and vulnerable. But fear was not universal. Among certain groups, a strange determination began to grow. Scientists who had spent years studying advanced technology, engineers who had dreamed of space exploration, and military leaders who had prepared for impossible scenarios all realized that humanity might still have a chance. They began to plan not just for survival but for resistance. They shared a quiet belief. If the Empire thought humans would surrender easily, they were about to be very wrong. This was the beginning of a new kind of courage, one forged from the realization that the fate of an entire species might rest on their actions. The first messages from the Galactic Empire finally arrived after a tense, silent week. They were simple, clear, and cold. Submit or face annihilation. There was no room for negotiation, no hint of mercy. The words echoed across Earth, translated into every language, and sent through every broadcast network. Humanity's leaders read the message in stunned silence. The threat was real, the stakes unimaginable. Yet in the quiet moments that followed, a strange thing happened. Across the planet, people began to talk not about surrender, but about survival, about fighting back, about showing the galaxy that Earth would not be conquered without a struggle. In orbit, the Empire's ships continued to loom, a silent reminder of the danger above. On the ground, humanity was waking up to its new reality. The first part of the story was not about battle. It was about understanding, fear, and the slow gathering of courage. It was the moment when the people of Earth realized that the universe was far larger and more dangerous than they had imagined, but also that they were not powerless. The arrival of the Galactic Empire had shaken the world, but it had also begun to awaken something much stronger: humanity itself. The moment the Galactic Empire's ultimatum reached Earth, panic and confusion gripped governments worldwide. Leaders stared at the cold, uncompromising message: submit or face annihilation. Ordinary citizens were terrified, unsure whether the warning meant total destruction or a chance for negotiation. People clutched their loved ones, looking up at the skies, imagining massive ships darkening the horizon. Yet beneath the fear, a new determination began to stir, quietly at first, among those who refused to accept defeat. World leaders called an emergency summit, bringing together the brightest minds on the planet. Scientists, military generals, engineers, diplomats, and strategic planners. The goal was simple but nearly impossible: find a way to respond to a galactic force millions of times stronger than humanity. In the early hours, discussions were chaotic. Some leaders argued that surrender was the only logical choice. "We cannot defeat them," one general warned. "Our weapons are primitive compared to theirs. Any resistance would mean total annihilation." Others, however, refused to consider submission. "If we surrender," a diplomat countered, "we lose not just our freedom, but our identity, our future. Humanity cannot kneel." Amid the debate, a small group of visionaries emerged. Scientists who had long dreamed of space exploration, engineers who had designed experimental defense systems, and military leaders who had prepared for worst-case scenarios quietly began to outline an alternative. Their idea was bold and dangerous. Humanity could fight back, not with brute force, but with ingenuity. They proposed activating long-hidden projects, advanced weapon systems, stealth ships, and AI-controlled drones that had been in development for decades but never used. These were humanity's secret advantages, tools the Empire would never expect from a seemingly minor planet. As plans took shape, the urgency of the situation became impossible to ignore. The Empire's fleet had entered the outer solar system, moving steadily toward Earth. Satellites and early warning systems reported formations of ships that dwarfed human imagination. Analysts calculated their firepower and speed, and the numbers were grim. Conventional attacks would fail. The strategy shifted from direct confrontation to smart, tactical defense. Humanity would have to rely on cleverness, coordination, and surprise. Meanwhile, people around the world reacted in different ways. Fear and chaos were everywhere. Cities like Tokyo, New York, and Paris saw streets filled with crowds buying supplies, preparing shelters, and trying to protect themselves. Governments issued calm statements, but their leaders were aware that these measures were not enough. Ordinary citizens, however, began showing signs of resilience. Communities organized neighborhood watches, volunteer teams formed to help the vulnerable, and civilians began sharing information on survival and safety. Humanity's response was not just military, It was social, collective, and deeply human. Back in government chambers and secret bases, the coalition worked tirelessly. Engineers reverse-engineered alien signals, attempting to understand the technology of the incoming fleet. AI experts developed programs to simulate enemy behavior, predicting how the Empire might respond to human tactics. Military leaders coordinated strategies for orbital defense, focusing on mobility, stealth, and misdirection. Everything was designed to maximize humanity's limited resources. The goal was to survive the first wave, disrupt the enemy, and prove that Earth was not an easy target. Amid the technical work, diplomacy also played a role. Messages were sent to the Empire, not as surrender, but as part of a calculated psychological strategy. Humanity projected both compliance and hidden defiance, hoping to buy time while preparing for resistance. Every transmission was carefully crafted to avoid provoking immediate attack while still signaling that Earth would not submit quietly. This dual approach, combining negotiation with hidden preparation, demonstrated humanity's ability to think strategically under pressure, something the Empire likely had never encountered before. As the hours turned into days, a sense of unity began to form across the globe. Nations that had once been rivals now worked together, pooling resources, sharing intelligence, and coordinating defense systems. Scientific communities collaborated like never before, exchanging research and innovations at unprecedented speeds. Engineers, astronauts, and programmers worked through nights without rest, driven by a sense of duty to protect every person on Earth. Ordinary citizens also contributed, volunteering for emergency response teams, manufacturing supplies, and even training in basic defense measures. Humanity was awakening to the reality that survival depended not just on leaders, but on every individual. The coalition's boldest decision came when they activated hidden fleets, stealth warships designed to operate beyond the limits of known human technology. These ships were capable of high-speed maneuvers, cloaking, and precision strikes, but their effectiveness depended on flawless execution and timing. Scientists calibrated energy weapons and defense shields, while military strategists plotted ambushes near the asteroid belt and outer planets. The preparation was meticulous. Every simulation, every contingency plan, was calculated to ensure that humanity had at least a fighting chance against an enemy that outclassed them in every obvious measure. By the end of the first week, humanity's response had transformed from fear to strategy. The world had shifted from panic to organized resistance. People began to feel that the Empire's threat, though terrifying, could be countered. Courage grew alongside fear. Leaders, once doubtful of resistance, now openly discussed tactics to repel the invaders. Scientists and engineers realized that their years of secret research could now save millions of lives. Citizens found hope in the knowledge that they were part of something larger than themselves, a collective effort that spanned every nation, culture, and background. Though the Galactic Empire loomed closer, Earth was no longer a helpless planet. Humanity's response was not just about military preparation. It was about uniting, innovating, and refusing to surrender. The arrival of the Empire had shaken the world to its core, but it had also awakened a determination that had lain dormant for centuries. Humanity was no longer just a species on a small planet. It was a force capable of strategic thought, resilience, and courage. The story of survival had begun, and for the first time, humans dared to believe that they might not just survive, but fight back. After days of preparation, debates, and careful planning, humanity was ready to take the boldest step of all. The world had watched as the Galactic Empire's armada approached, their silent, ominous presence looming like dark clouds over Earth. Fear had been replaced by determination, and leaders knew that any hesitation could be fatal. It was time to send a message, not a plea for mercy, but a declaration of defiance. Humanity's final ultimatum would be delivered, and with it, a warning that the planet would not be conquered without a fight. The message was crafted with precision. Scientists, military strategists, and diplomats worked together, ensuring that every word conveyed strength, unity, and resolve. It would be broadcast across the solar system and, more importantly, across the communications networks that the Empire monitored. Humanity wanted the aliens to understand one thing clearly. This was no ordinary world, and humans were no ordinary species. Every detail mattered, the tone, the wording, even the timing of the transmission. Weeks of coordination led to this singular moment. When the broadcast finally began, it reached every corner of Earth and extended far into space. Across cities, people stopped what they were doing to watch, listen, or hear. Families gathered in living rooms, offices went silent, and even soldiers on the front lines paused to witness humanity's collective voice. The message declared that Earth would defend itself at all costs, that any aggression would be met with an unyielding response, and that humanity's ingenuity and resolve were not to be underestimated. It was a warning, but also a statement of pride. Humanity was united, aware of the danger, and willing to face it head-on. The Empire's reaction was immediate, though indirect. Their massive fleet did not respond with words, only with subtle adjustments in formation. The silence from the invaders was almost deafening. Analysts studying the alien armada noted changes in movement, ships veering slightly, energy shields activating, and smaller reconnaissance vessels moving in new patterns. It was clear that the Empire had not expected such confidence from a planet they considered minor. Human military officers realized that their message had made an impact. Fear, it seemed, was not one-sided. On Earth, the broadcast had an electrifying effect. Across nations, people felt a surge of pride and determination. Soldiers, previously anxious about facing a superior enemy, now moved with purpose. Engineers and scientists, who had worked tirelessly to prepare hidden fleets and experimental weapons, found new energy in their tasks. Citizens volunteered for civil defense, shared resources, and trained for emergencies. The broadcast had done more than warn the Empire. It had awakened a sense of unity and purpose across humanity, a realization that survival depended on everyone working together. Diplomats and military leaders monitored every possible response from the Empire. Every movement was analyzed, every energy fluctuation studied. There was a growing awareness that the Empire had underestimated humans. These were not creatures that would surrender quietly. They were creative, adaptive, and willing to risk everything for survival. Earth's response, while simple in concept, demonstrated complexity in execution. It was not just a message of defiance, but a demonstration of strategy and foresight. The Empire could no longer treat Earth as a minor world to be conquered effortlessly. Meanwhile, hidden operations continued at full speed. Human fleets, long kept secret from public knowledge, were activated and moved into strategic positions. Cloaked ships, capable of striking unseen, prepared to defend orbital platforms and intercept approaching enemy vessels. Scientists calibrated weapons, tested shields, and ensured that every human advantage was maximized. The broadcast was only the beginning. The real preparation was already underway. Humanity's strategy combined psychological impact with practical defense, showing the Empire that Earth was ready for both. The world's population also felt the psychological effect. Fear was still present, but it was tempered by pride. Schools, workplaces, and media outlets emphasized resilience, problem-solving, and cooperation. Stories of bravery and quick thinking spread rapidly. Communities formed emergency plans, and volunteers trained to assist in defense or evacuation efforts. The broadcast had achieved a second purpose. It was not only a warning to the Empire but also a rallying cry to humans themselves, inspiring them to act boldly, intelligently, and without hesitation. Not everyone was optimistic. Some feared that humanity's message had provoked the Empire, inviting destruction instead of deterring it. Military analysts calculated the risk, wondering if the Empire's overwhelming power could respond with immediate and devastating force. But even in these moments of doubt, humans found strength in their unity. The combined determination of leaders, scientists, and ordinary citizens created a new kind of confidence, one that no alien threat could easily break. Humans were ready to defend their planet no matter the odds. As the days passed, humanity's ultimatum became more than words. It became a symbol. Across the globe, it was repeated on news networks, in classrooms, and on social media. Every citizen understood that this was a turning point. The Empire could see it too. A planet that might have seemed insignificant was now declaring its presence, asserting its power and proving its intelligence. Humanity's final ultimatum had shaken the stars, not through firepower alone, but through courage, coordination, and ingenuity. By the end of the first week after the broadcast, Earth had transformed. Fear had been replaced by purpose. Citizens were no longer passive observers. They were participants in a struggle for survival and recognition. Military fleets and secret projects were ready. Scientists had perfected their plans, and human ingenuity had risen to meet the challenge of a galactic threat. Humanity's message had accomplished more than intended. It had warned the Empire, united the planet, and reminded everyone that even in the face of overwhelming odds, humans were not a species to be underestimated. The Empire had received the warning, but its next move was still unknown. Human strategists anticipated counterattacks, analyzing every possibility, while citizens remained vigilant and ready. The final ultimatum had been sent, echoing across the solar system and into the depths of space. It was a declaration that Earth would fight, that humanity would survive, and that no alien power could ever crush the will of a united planet. The stage was set for the next chapter of the struggle, a battle that would test humanity's courage, strategy, and resilience on a scale never before imagined. The first real encounter with the Galactic Empire came quietly at first, almost like a test. Reconnaissance ships detected small enemy scout vessels entering the outer edges of the solar system. These scouts were sleek and fast, far beyond anything humanity had ever built. They scanned the planets and moons, searching for weaknesses, gathering intelligence, and reporting back to the massive fleet that now hovered just beyond the orbit of Jupiter. Human scientists and military analysts watched the signals nervously, understanding that these initial probes were not attacks, but preludes to them. Humanity's secret fleets had already been deployed in anticipation. Cloaked ships moved silently along hidden orbital paths, ready to strike or defend at a moment's notice. Energy weapons were calibrated, shields activated, and AI-controlled drones waited for their orders. For the first time in human history, every detail of a military operation was executed in secret and on a planetary scale. The analysts called it a perfect chessboard, and humanity's pieces were ready. The arrival of the scouts marked the first opportunity to test their preparations. The first skirmish erupted near the asteroid belt. Human ships, previously invisible to the Empire's sensors, launched a coordinated attack on a group of enemy scouts. The engagement was brief but intense. Lasers and energy beams cut across the void, and smaller human ships used their agility to outmaneuver vessels far larger and more powerful. Explosions lit the darkness of space as alien scouts were destroyed one by one. Humanity had not yet faced the Empire's full force, but this small victory sent shockwaves through Earth's command centers. For the first time, humans realized they could fight and even win in space. The Empire's response was immediate. Larger ships shifted into position, bristling with weapons designed to annihilate human craft. At first, it seemed that the balance of power was obvious. Humanity had limited ships, limited weapons, and limited experience in interstellar combat. Yet the Empire soon discovered that humans were not predictable. They used guerrilla-style tactics, striking quickly and retreating before the enemy could react. They used debris fields, asteroid belts, and cloaked maneuvers to hide their movements, turning the solar system into a deadly maze for the invaders. Every attack was calculated, every retreat strategic. On Earth, the population followed the news with a mixture of awe and anxiety. For the first time, humans were seeing their secret fleets in action. Citizens watched broadcasts of small skirmishes projected from secure military channels, witnessing the skill and bravery of their pilots. These early battles became a source of inspiration, proving that humans could stand against the Empire's advanced technology. Children drew pictures of the stealth ships, soldiers shared strategies, and ordinary citizens began to believe in the possibility of victory. Fear still lingered, but it was tempered by hope, courage, and a growing sense of pride. The skirmishes also revealed humanity's ingenuity in adapting everyday technology for defense. Scientists had modified conventional satellites and commercial spacecraft to carry weapons and shields, transforming them into unexpected threats for the Empire. AI drones, programmed to operate independently in combat situations, moved faster than human pilots could react, intercepting enemy missiles and sabotaging alien systems. Even small teams of engineers in remote facilities contributed to the war effort, monitoring signals and controlling devices that disrupted the enemy's coordination. Every citizen who had a role, no matter how small, became part of the battle, turning the defense of Earth into a collective effort unlike any in history. Despite the victories, the danger was constant. Alien weapons were devastatingly powerful, capable of destroying entire human ships with a single shot. Any mistake could lead to catastrophic loss. Human pilots felt the weight of responsibility in every engagement, knowing that failure could mean the destruction of their planet. The stakes were incomprehensibly high, but instead of succumbing to fear, humans used it as motivation. Each skirmish honed their tactics, improved their technology, and strengthened their resolve. They were learning faster than the Empire anticipated, evolving on the battlefield in ways that the invaders had never experienced. As the weeks passed, skirmishes became more frequent and more daring. Humanity began to push further, using stealth and agility to strike at enemy supply lines and reconnaissance ships. The Empire, initially confident, realized that Earth's defenses were intelligent, adaptive, and far more dangerous than expected. Commanders of the invading fleet began to report confusion and frustration, struggling to anticipate human movements. The idea that a minor planet could resist a galactic power seemed almost impossible, but it was happening. Humans were rewriting the rules of engagement, forcing the Empire to rethink its assumptions. Back on Earth, the sense of purpose grew stronger. The population, once paralyzed by fear, now participated in civil defense, communication, and morale-boosting efforts. Scientists refined weapons and defenses in response to skirmish reports, engineers repaired and upgraded ships, and military leaders developed new strategies based on lessons learned. Humanity had transformed from a reactive species into a proactive force, capable of planning, innovating, and executing complex maneuvers against an overwhelming opponent. Every skirmish was a test, a learning opportunity, and a demonstration that humans would not be subdued easily. The first skirmishes also sent a message to the Galactic Empire: Earth would not surrender without a fight. Each loss of alien scouts and damage to larger ships forced the Empire to reconsider its assumptions about human strength and ingenuity. The silence that had followed the initial ultimatum was replaced by cautious observation and careful planning. Humanity had proven that even a seemingly weak species could resist a technologically superior force with intelligence, creativity, and determination. By the end of these early confrontations, humanity had learned a critical truth. Survival depended not on the size of their weapons, but on the cleverness of their strategies and the unity of their people. Fear had been transformed into courage, panic into purpose, and uncertainty into action. The first skirmishes had not just tested humanity, they had revealed its true strength. For the first time, Earth had become a player in a galactic conflict, a world that the Empire could no longer dismiss. The stage was set for larger battles, more daring tactics, and the emergence of a planet that refused to be conquered. After the first skirmishes, it became clear to humanity that surviving the Galactic Empire required more than courage. It required a carefully planned strategy. The small victories in the asteroid belt had shown that human ingenuity and stealth could hold off the enemy temporarily, but the Empire was adapting quickly. Scientists, military leaders, and engineers realized that the next phase would need coordinated long-term tactics that combined offense, defense, and intelligence. Every action had to count, because a single mistake could bring catastrophic consequences. The first step was understanding the enemy. Humanity's analysts studied the fleet's movements, energy signals, and communication patterns. They identified weak points in the ship's formations and discovered that the Empire relied heavily on centralized command. Disrupting this command structure could create chaos within the fleet. At the same time, humans mapped every patrol route, every supply line, and every scanning device the Empire used. These insights allowed them to plan attacks that would not just damage enemy ships, but also confuse and delay the larger fleet. Knowledge, they realized, could be as powerful as any weapon. Next came the creation of specialized units. Engineers and scientists modified existing spacecraft into stealth fighters, armed with energy weapons and advanced cloaking technology. AI-controlled drones were programmed to operate independently in combat zones, capable of intercepting enemy missiles, sabotaging ships, and creating diversions. Human pilots trained in orbital maneuvers and hit-and-run tactics, learning how to strike quickly and vanish before the enemy could respond. Even small asteroid mining ships were adapted as mobile artillery platforms, ready to ambush unsuspecting invaders. Humanity was turning everything at its disposal into a weapon, proving that creativity could level the playing field against superior technology. Coordination became the next priority. Humans developed a planetary command system that connected every fleet, satellite, and ground station in real time. Every movement was monitored, every decision shared instantly across teams. This allowed the human forces to act like a single organism, striking in multiple places simultaneously and responding to threats faster than the Empire expected. Civilian technology was even incorporated into the system, with satellites and communication networks used to enhance coordination. Humans were learning to use intelligence and connectivity as force multipliers, showing that strategy could overcome brute strength. At the same time, humanity focused on defense. Orbital platforms were strengthened, shields tested, and energy grids optimized. Scientists calculated the most likely attack paths the Empire would use and created traps, minefields, and decoy systems. Humans used the asteroid belt, moons, and even planetary shadows to hide fleets and stage ambushes. Every defensive measure was designed to force the enemy into vulnerability, where a small human force could create maximum impact. It was not about winning through sheer firepower, but through planning, deception, and timing. Another critical element of the strategy was psychological warfare. Humanity's leaders realized that showing resilience could unsettle the Empire. After the first skirmishes, every small victory was broadcast across secure channels. Reports of destroyed alien scouts, intercepted communications, and clever ambushes were deliberately circulated to give humans a morale boost while making the enemy cautious. Every signal, every maneuver, and every successful strike contributed to a growing reputation. Earth was not a defenseless world. This psychological edge was just as important as the technology, because it made the Empire hesitate, giving humans precious time to adapt and strike. Humanity also invested in flexibility. No single plan could survive contact with the Empire unchanged. Humans created multiple backup strategies, alternative attack routes, and contingency measures for every scenario. Fleets could split into small, agile groups, each capable of operating independently or converging for larger strikes. AI drones could adjust their behavior based on battlefield conditions. Engineers continuously modified weapon systems based on the enemy's evolving tactics. Humans had learned from the first skirmishes that adaptability would be their greatest weapon, and no rigid plan could replace it. On Earth, the population played a supporting role in the strategy. Factories ran around the clock, producing supplies, weapons, and spare parts. Civilian scientists contributed to research, engineers refined equipment, and volunteers assisted with logistics. Communities trained in emergency response, ready to support human forces in orbit or on the ground. The planet had become a single coordinated system, where every person, every piece of technology, and every institution contributed to the larger plan. Humanity had transformed into a species operating with both intelligence and unity on a scale the galaxy had never seen. The strategy also included preparation for the worst-case scenario, a direct assault on Earth itself. Cities were fortified, evacuation plans created, and underground shelters reinforced. Scientists devised energy shields and orbital defense systems capable of intercepting massive attacks. Humanity understood that the Empire would eventually strike in full force, but they were ready. The goal was not only survival, but turning any engagement into a calculated battle where the Empire could be damaged, delayed, or confused. Each action was designed to maximize humanity's leverage and ensure that no attack would go uncontested. As days turned into weeks, humanity's strategy began to show results. Smaller skirmishes became more effective, ambushes more precise, and the Empire's reconnaissance began to struggle. Reports reached Earth of enemy confusion and caution, signs that humans were learning faster than the invaders anticipated. Every success reinforced the planet's confidence, proving that intelligence, creativity, and unity could counterbalance technological inferiority. Humans were no longer reacting, they were shaping the battlefield according to their will. By the end of this phase, humanity had transformed from a frightened planet into a strategic force. The first skirmishes had tested their courage, but their long-term plan ensured that courage would be backed by skill, preparation, and foresight. The solar system had become a stage for a battle of minds as much as a battle of weapons. Humans were proving that even against a galactic power, survival and victory were possible when strategy, adaptability, and unity worked together. The Empire, once confident in its superiority, was beginning to understand that Earth could not be conquered without paying a heavy price. Humanity's strategy was no longer just a plan, it was a declaration. Every move, every modification, and every calculated strike sent a message across the stars. Earth was prepared, humans were clever, and the planet would not surrender. The stage was set for the next phase of conflict, where ingenuity, courage, and strategy would determine the outcome of the first true interstellar war in human history. The reports of Earth's unexpected resistance soon reached the highest authorities of the Galactic Empire, the members of the Galactic Council. This was the body that oversaw interstellar law, governance, and military operations across countless star systems. Historically, the Council had seen many species rise and fall, planets submit or rebel, but Earth was different. A single planet, armed with primitive technology by galactic standards, was not just surviving, it was resisting intelligently and effectively. The Council's chambers, usually places of calm deliberation, buzzed with alarm and confusion as the data streamed in. Delegates from hundreds of worlds crowded into the Council halls, projecting holograms of Earth's defenses, fleet maneuvers, and skirmish reports. The images were shocking. Small human ships darted through asteroid belts with astonishing speed, ambushing alien scouts and disappearing before retaliation. AI drones interfered with advanced targeting systems. Even more surprising, humans were rapidly adapting, learning from each encounter and improving tactics faster than the Empire had anticipated. Many Council members muttered in disbelief. No minor planet had ever shown this level of coordination, intelligence, and adaptability. Debates erupted immediately. Some members argued for restraint, urging a pause and reconsideration. This species is unpredictable, one delegate warned. They are clever, adaptive, and fearless. A full-scale assault may not yield the results we expect. Perhaps negotiation or observation is the safer approach. These voices emphasize diplomacy, advocating for a careful study of human behavior before committing the Empire's full forces. They reminded the Council that underestimating a species had led to disasters in the past, and Earth might be another example of that mistake if mishandled. Other members took a harder line. They saw humanity's resistance as an affront to the Empire's authority. They are defying centuries of order, a Council general declared. Allowing this planet to resist sets a dangerous precedent. If we hesitate, other worlds may rise in rebellion, inspired by humans. We must act decisively, destroy their defenses, and make an example. These voices argued for immediate retaliation, insisting that Earth should be crushed before it became more powerful or influenced other civilizations. Tensions between these factions escalated, filling the halls with heated argument, threats, and accusations. Amid the debates, the Council struggled to understand humans themselves. Unlike other species they had encountered, humans were unpredictable, emotional, and incredibly resourceful. They showed loyalty not just to leaders but to each other, acting collectively in ways that seemed irrational yet effective. Their resilience inspired awe even in the Council's most cynical members. Some delegates admitted quietly that they had underestimated Earth entirely, assuming that a technologically inferior world would surrender without a fight. They were beginning to realize that humans were not just another species. They were an anomaly, one that challenged the Council's assumptions about power, intelligence, and warfare. Meanwhile, Earth's broadcasts continued to echo across the stars. The final ultimatum and subsequent reports of skirmishes had reached many other planets within the Empire's sphere. News of human ingenuity spread quickly, and intelligence networks detected that other species were watching, some with curiosity, others with fear. This information further complicated the Council's deliberations. Members knew that their decision would not only affect Earth but could influence entire regions of the galaxy. Allowing humanity to survive could inspire rebellions elsewhere. Destroying them could provoke outrage or further conflicts. The stakes were immense, and every vote counted. Some members suggested containment strategies, blockades, selective strikes, or economic sanctions, hoping to starve humans of resources while avoiding direct confrontation. Others proposed sending envoys or observers disguised as traders, scientists, or diplomats, in an attempt to study humans and learn their weaknesses. These ideas reflected the Council's growing unease. They had faced many adversaries, but few were as unpredictable and dangerous as humans. The species' adaptability and determination challenged centuries of galactic dominance and required unprecedented thinking. During the debates, a few visionary members began to advocate for a different approach. Perhaps humanity is not a threat to be destroyed, but a species to be studied, guided, and integrated, one delegate suggested. They have intelligence, courage, and creativity that surpass many older civilizations. If handled carefully, they could become an ally, a valuable addition to the Empire rather than a problem to eliminate. While initially dismissed by the majority, these voices highlighted a new perspective. Humans were not merely a minor world to be crushed. They were a species with potential that even the Council could not ignore. As discussions continued, reports from the front lines showed that humans were not slowing down. The small victories in space, the clever maneuvers, and the rapid improvement of tactics were evidence that Earth's strategy was working. The Council had no choice but to acknowledge that humans were learning faster than expected, exploiting weaknesses in the Empire's forces, and demonstrating resilience that rivaled many advanced civilizations. Fear began to replace certainty, and the once confident members realized that a full-scale attack could carry unforeseen consequences. By the end of the Council session, no consensus had been reached. Some members leaned toward negotiation or cautious observation, others advocated overwhelming force, and a few quietly argued for studying humans as potential allies or subjects of research. The debates exposed the deepest uncertainty the Empire had faced in centuries. A species that could not be predicted, controlled, or easily destroyed. Humans had transformed from a curiosity to a critical factor in galactic politics, forcing the Empire to reconsider its strategies, priorities, and assumptions about power. The situation was unprecedented. Earth had shown that a united population, working with intelligence, courage, and creativity, could challenge even the most powerful interstellar authority. The Galactic Council, once confident in its ability to control and dominate minor worlds, now faced doubt and anxiety. Humanity's actions had not only protected their planet but also reshaped the way the galaxy viewed them. In a matter of weeks, humans had gone from an unknown species to a force capable of shaking the stars, forcing even the most powerful council in the galaxy to question its own decisions. As the council adjourned, delegates returned to their star systems with one clear understanding. Humanity could not be ignored. Plans would be made, fleets repositioned, and strategies reconsidered, but one truth remained undeniable. Earth had changed the game. The small blue planet that many had dismissed as insignificant had proven that courage, intelligence, and unity could rival even the greatest powers of the galaxy. Humanity was no longer a minor world. They were a species to be reckoned with. The war for Earth had been ongoing for weeks, and the small victories of humanity had begun to frustrate the Galactic Empire. Their scouts were being destroyed, supply lines disrupted, and strategies foiled at every turn. The Council's debates had bought humans time, but it was clear that the Empire would soon regroup and strike with greater force. Humanity knew that the next battle would be decisive, a test not just of courage, but of skill, strategy, and survival. This moment would determine whether Earth remained free or fell under alien domination. Human leaders convened in the command centers beneath Earth's surface, reviewing intelligence reports, simulations, and battle outcomes. The target was identified, the Empire's flagship, the nerve center of their operations. Destroying or incapacitating it could cripple the enemy fleet, disrupt command structures, and shift the momentum of the war in humanity's favor. The plan was bold, audacious, and dangerous. Every aspect of the mission had to be flawless, because failure would mean total annihilation of the human fleet. The preparation was meticulous. Cloaked warships were positioned along hidden orbital routes, ready to strike at a moment's notice. AI drones were programmed to swarm and distract, intercepting enemy defenses while human pilots prepared for precision attacks. Scientists ensured that energy weapons were fully charged, shields maximized, and targeting systems calibrated to the highest level of accuracy. Every human soldier and engineer understood the stakes. They were about to engage the Empire's strongest ship in a battle that would be remembered for generations. The mission began in the darkness of space, with human fleets moving silently toward the flagship's location near Mars. Using asteroids and shadows for cover, the fleet avoided detection, creeping closer with calculated patience. Communication was minimal, relying on encrypted channels to avoid interception. Each vessel had a role. Some would engage decoys, some would disable defenses, and a select few would strike directly at the flagship. Humans had learned that speed, precision, and coordination were more important than brute force. The success of the plan depended on timing, trust, and perfect execution. As the fleet approached the flagship, alarms finally blared across the Empire's vessels. They had detected anomalies, but it was too late to respond fully. Humanity's smaller, agile ships darted into position, striking at weak points and using hit-and-run tactics learned from previous skirmishes. Energy beams cut through shields, drones jammed systems, and human pilots executed maneuvers that the Empire had never anticipated. Chaos spread across the enemy fleet as their communication lines were disrupted and their formations fell apart. The flagship, once a symbol of invincibility, became a target under relentless, coordinated assault. The flagship's defenses were formidable. Massive energy shields, advanced targeting systems, and swarming fighters challenged humanity's attack at every turn. Yet humans were not deterred. They used every advantage available: asteroid cover, diversionary attacks, and calculated risks. Drones infiltrated shielded zones, sabotaging internal systems, while human pilots exploited even the smallest weaknesses in the enemy's formation. The battle was intense, a clash of technology, strategy, and courage. For the first time, humans were not just defending, they were dictating the terms of engagement. On Earth, citizens followed the battle in awe and anxiety. Screens displayed real-time updates of the engagement, showing brave pilots maneuvering through deadly corridors of fire, drones buzzing through enemy shields, and massive explosions erupting as the flagship sustained critical damage. Families held their breath, hoping for the success of the mission, knowing that the fate of their planet hung in the balance. Even civilians contributed, monitoring data, supporting communication networks, and ensuring that resources were allocated efficiently. Humanity had become a single organism, united in purpose and action. As the battle reached its climax, the flagship began to falter. Critical systems failed one by one, weapons became inoperable, and command functions were disrupted. The Empire's fleet, once confident and disciplined, descended into disarray. Smaller ships scattered, unable to coordinate, while human forces exploited every gap. The flagship, the symbol of the Empire's power in the sector, was now vulnerable to final, decisive strikes. Pilots risked everything, navigating through concentrated fire to deliver the blow that would change the course of the war. Finally, the flagship's core reactor was targeted. A combination of precision strikes from human ships and interference from AI drones caused a chain reaction within the vessel. Explosions rippled across its hull, sending shockwaves through the surrounding fleet. The flagship, once the heart of the Empire's operation, was destroyed in a spectacular display of strategy, courage, and human ingenuity. The remaining enemy vessels, leaderless and confused, retreated into the depths of space, regrouping far from the solar system. Humanity had achieved the impossible. A minor planet had crippled a major force of the Galactic Empire. The victory sent shockwaves across both Earth and the galaxy. On the planet, people erupted in celebrations tempered by relief and caution. Soldiers, scientists, engineers, and civilians alike understood the magnitude of the achievement. Humanity had demonstrated that courage, strategy, and unity could overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. Across the galaxy, news of the battle spread rapidly. Members of the Galactic Council were forced to reconsider their assumptions about Earth, realizing that this planet was not just resilient but also capable of strategic brilliance. Humanity was no longer a species to be dismissed. It was a power that demanded respect. This turning point reshaped the conflict entirely. The Empire, humbled by the loss of its flagship, adopted a more cautious approach, aware that humans were unpredictable and resourceful. Human forces, emboldened by victory, refined their strategies, improved their technology, and prepared for the next phase of the war. The battle had proven that survival depended not only on courage and strength, but on intelligence, planning, and the ability to adapt. Humanity's victory was a message to the galaxy. Earth would not surrender, and its people were willing to fight for freedom against all odds. In the aftermath, leaders on Earth reflected on the lessons of the turning point. Strategy, preparation, and unity had made the difference. The courage of pilots, the precision of scientists, and the resilience of ordinary citizens had combined to achieve what many had thought impossible. Humanity had changed, from a frightened species defending its home, to a clever and daring civilization capable of shaping the course of interstellar events. The solar system had become a stage for a new era, one in which humans would be remembered not as a minor species, but as a force that could challenge the greatest powers of the galaxy. The turning point was not just a battle, it was a statement. Humanity had proven its worth, intelligence, and courage. The Empire had learned to respect, if not fear, the small blue planet that refused to surrender. And for humans, the victory was a reminder that survival and triumph were possible, even in the darkest and most dangerous moments. The war was far from over, but for the first time, Earth had taken the initiative, shaping the future of the conflict with strategy, determination, and unity.